Let me be clear. This is not a speech about superstition or folklore. This is a wake-up call. A soul-deep message for anyone who has ever felt spiritually suffocated, emotionally drained, or intuitively unsettled by someone in their life. Some people wear charm like a cloak, but carry chaos in their breath. They walk in and suddenly your peace evaporates. Not because you're paranoid, but because something in your spirit recognizes a presence that doesn't belong near your light. You know that light inside you, the one that shines when you laugh freely, love deeply, dream boldly? That light is your essence. It's your spirit in motion, resilient, radiant, and unapologetically alive. But when someone with a dark, destructive spirit enters your life, that light becomes a threat to them, not because you've harmed them, not because you've wronged them, but because your light exposes everything they've worked so hard to hide. They can't stand your joy because they've buried their own. They'll mock your faith because they have none. They'll call you too emotional, too dramatic, too soft, because they've hardened themselves to survive in the darkness. And so they start small. They don't dim your light all at once. They chip away at it. One passive-aggressive comment at a time. One sarcastic remark about your hopes. Any backhanded compliment about your success. They belittle your passion. They roll their eyes when you speak from the heart. They question your calling, your choices, your strength. Over time, you may even start shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. You may quiet your joy, downplay your talents, or suppress your voice just to avoid their jabs, their jealousy, their judgment. But here's the truth. Your light is not the problem, their darkness is. People who love you won't feel threatened by your growth. They'll water it. People who are aligned with your spirit will encourage you to shine, not ask you to fade. So if someone consistently tries to dull your brightness, criticize your joy, or mock your purpose, know this: that's not love. That's spiritual sabotage. You are not born to be dimmed. You were born to blaze. And anyone who can't handle your light has no business walking in your path. Let them choke on the shadows they created. You keep shining, brighter than ever. One of the clearest signs that you're in the presence of spiritual darkness is confusion. Not the kind that arises from life's natural uncertainty, but the kind that clings to your chest after every conversation with them. That eerie, exhausting fog that makes you question what's real. They don't communicate to connect, they communicate to control. They speak in riddles, half-truths, contradictions. One moment they adore you, the next they invalidate you. You ask for honesty and instead you get wordplay, vagueness, diversion. They're masters of spinning stories that sound logical but feel wrong. You walk away from arguments wondering, did I overreact? Did I miss something? No, you didn't miss anything. They're just not speaking from a place of truth. They lie easily, skillfully, and often. But it's not just the lies. It's the way they reframe reality to make themselves look like the victim and you the villain. They plant doubt in your mind like seeds and then step back and watch it grow. Suddenly, you're unsure of your memories. You're second-guessing your instincts. You're apologizing for things you never did, explaining things you never meant, defending yourself against distortions. This isn't miscommunication. This is spiritual manipulation. They know exactly what they're doing, and the goal is simple: to disorient you so you no longer trust yourself. Because once you lose your inner compass, they can lead you anywhere down a path that serves them and strips you But here's what you need to understand. Truth brings peace. Truth brings clarity. Truth, even when it's hard, will never leave you spiritually disoriented. God, the universe, or whatever name you give to love, it doesn't speak in confusion. It speaks in conviction, in stillness, in deep, calm knowing. So if someone's words leave you constantly spinning, doubting, shrinking, that is not love. That is not truth. That is not light. It's darkness masked in language. It's control masked in conversation. And it's spiritual poison administered slowly. You don't need to wait for a screaming match to confirm toxicity. Sometimes the whisper of confusion is the only alarm you'll get. So trust it, listen to it, and walk away while you still remember who you are. Some people don't just tolerate your pain, they feed off it. It energizes them, excites them, even soothes their own hidden misery. They won't say it out loud, of course. They'll smile when you cry and nod with concern. But if you look closely, really closely, you'll see it. Suffering awakens something in them. I think when things go wrong in your life, they lean in a little closer. They suddenly become more present, but only to observe, not to help. They don't hold space for your healing. They hover like vultures waiting for fresh wounds. Your heartbreak becomes their silent satisfaction. Your disappointment becomes their secret delight. They ask questions, but only to collect emotional ammunition. They listen, but only to retell your story when you're not around. They say things like, I just want what's best for you, but their actions contradict that over and over. Ever notice how they disappear when you're thriving, but reappear when you're barely holding on? It's not a coincidence. They feel most powerful when you feel most powerless. Because deep down, they're not driven by love or empathy. They're driven by envy, emptiness, and a toxic thirst for superiority. And when someone's spirit is rooted in darkness, your joy becomes their trigger, and your suffering becomes their comfort zone. They may even orchestrate some of your pain, subtly, sabotage opportunities behind your back. Say words that cut just deep enough to bleed, but not enough to be called out. Create chaos, and then sit back and watch you drown in it. But let me tell you something. That's not friendship. That's not family. That's not love. That's spiritual abuse. That is a soul-level violation wrapped in manipulation. The truth is, people who are aligned with light don't enjoy your suffering. They feel it with you. They don't disappear in your pain. They sit in it beside you. They don't grow stronger when you break. They lift you back to your feet. If someone consistently shows more interest in your wounds than your wins, you need to ask yourself, are they here to witness your healing or to watch your destruction? Don't let someone call it caring when it's actually cruelty. Don't let their presence feel like punishment. Protect your spirit like it's sacred, because it is. And anyone who thrives on your suffering should lose access to your soul immediately. At first, they feel like everything you've ever prayed for. They come wrapped in charm with words that feel like honey and attention that feels intoxicating. They know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. They study you, your insecurities, your desires, your dreams, and then they mirror back the version of themselves that you've been waiting to meet. This is not love. This is seduction with intent. Because the moment you let your guard down, the moment you start to trust and believe and invest, they change. Suddenly, the sweetness turns sour. The compliments fade. The communication shifts from consistent to confusing. You start walking on eggshells trying to get back to the version of them they showed you in the beginning. But that version was never real. See, people with truly dark energy don't want to build love. They want to build leverage. They use affection as bait. They use vulnerability as ammunition. They use intimacy as a weapon, not to draw you closer, but to create dependency. And once they sense that you care, really care, they flip the script. They withdraw affection. They test your loyalty with cruelty. They create distance and then accuse you of being too emotional, too needy, too sensitive. And the most dangerous part, they make you feel like it's your fault, like you're the one who changed. Like you're the one asking for too much, wanting too deeply, loving too hard. But we're consistent. They were true. We're all in. They were calculated. They don't love you. They love what your love does for their ego. They don't want connection. They want control. They don't want a partner. They want a puppet. And when they're done feeding on your energy, when they've drained you enough, they'll walk away, sometimes without a word. Or worse, they'll stay just close enough to keep the cycle going, seducing you again, just to sabotage you once more. This pattern is not a phase. It's not miscommunication. It's spiritual sabotage dressed in romance, friendship, or even mentorship. So here's your reminder. If someone has to break you just to feel powerful, run. If someone woos you with perfection and then punishes you for loving them, run. If someone's love feels like a pendulum between heaven and hell, run and don't look back. You deserve safe love. You deserve consistency, not chaos. You deserve to be loved in ways that don't require you to constantly heal from the same person who's hurting you. True love doesn't seduce to destroy. It shows up to stay. One of the clearest signs you're dealing with a toxic, possibly spiritually dark presence is this: they run from accountability like it burns them. Try holding them responsible for their actions, and suddenly you become the villain. They'll twist your words, shift the blame, bring up your past, or distract you with a bigger drama, anything to avoid one simple truth. They don't want to be responsible for the damage they cause. It's not that they don't understand what they've done. They do. They just don't want to face the consequences. Because accountability requires humility. It requires self-awareness. It requires a willingness to grow. And that threatens their entire identity. Because people like this are invested in staying the same. They hide behind charm, anger, victimhood, or spiritual superiority, but the second you ask them to own their behavior, they unravel. They'll say things like, "Why are you bringing that up now? You're too sensitive. You always twist my words. This is why I don't open up. Everyone makes mistakes. You're not perfect either." And just like that, you become the problem. You find yourself apologizing just to keep the peace. You start tiptoeing around the truth, softening your boundaries, shrinking your voice, because it's safer than dealing with their emotional explosions or silent treatments. But here's what's really happening. They're not scared of confrontation. They're scared of exposure, because accountability shines a light on everything they've worked hard to keep hidden. The manipulation, the lies, the cruelty, the abandonment, the spiritual decay behind their persona. And light terrifies darkness. Let's be honest, nobody's perfect. We all fall short. We all hurt people we love sometimes. But there's a huge difference between someone who messes up and tries to make it right, and someone who weaponizes their flaws to keep hurting you without ever having to change. Accountability isn't punishment. It's the pathway to trust, to healing, to transformation. So when someone consistently dodges it, mocks it, or attacks you for seeking it, that is not a safe soul. That's someone who will keep wounding you and never stop long enough to care about the bleeding. You are not asking for too much when you ask someone to take responsibility, and you are not difficult or dramatic for demanding truth. You are choosing self-respect. You are standing for your spirit. You are refusing to water down your worth for someone too fragile to face themselves. Remember this: accountability doesn't destroy real relationships. It reveals the ones that were already rotten. There comes a time when protecting your spirit becomes more important than protecting the connection. When the signs are no longer subtle and your soul starts screaming for peace, listen, you weren't created to be confused, drained, or manipulated. You weren't placed on this earth to tolerate chaos disguised as love or cruelty masked as toughness. There are people walking around in human form but carrying spiritual poison sent not to build but to break you. Oh, they hate your light. They twist your truth. They enjoy your pain. They seduce only to sabotage. And when asked to grow, they recoil as if truth itself were a threat. These aren't misunderstandings, these are warnings. Red flags wrapped in charisma, evil wrapped in familiarity. Don't wait for the final blow to realize you've been bleeding all along. It's not dramatic to walk away from people who are slowly killing your peace. Not cruel to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You owe no one your destruction. When a person starts to feel like a battlefield, don't pray harder, run faster, because not every demon looks like a monster. Some just look like someone you used to love